Hello children and welcome to today's English class. Today we will start with a new lesson, Caught by a Sneeze by Thomas Hardy. Caught by a Sneeze, or The Thieves Who Couldn't Stop Sneezing, is one of the most famous works of Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy was a 19th century novelist and poet who portrayed beautifully the rural life of England. Rich in description and dialect, his work were written museums of the vanished culture. Most of his work he portrays in Wessex. It was an imaginary land that was mapped on the geography of southwest England. Caught by a Sneeze by Thomas Hardy is a story about a young boy, Hubert. He was a yeoman's son. Once he was asked by his father to complete a work far away from his home. Hubert, on his way, was caught by highwaymen, and his horse was also taken away. Was Hubert able to free himself from the highwaymen? Could he return back home? Who was caught sneezing? All these answers to these questions we will get after we read Caught by a Sneeze. So let's get started, children.
Caught by a Sneeze by Thomas Hardy. Section 1. Many years ago, there lived in Wessex a yeoman's son, whose name was Hubert. He was about 14 years of age, and as frank and cheerful as he was physically brave. He was, in fact, a little vain about his courage. It means Hubert did not know how courageous he was. One cold Christmas Eve, his father, having no other help at hand, sent him on an important errand to a small town several miles from home. Errand means a work when you go out to get something and then you hurriedly come back. He travelled on horseback, and the business kept him till late in the evening. The business kept him till late in the evening means his work did not get over before late evening. At last, however, it was completed. He saddled his horse and started on his way. His journey homeward lay through the Vale of Blackmoor, a fertile but somewhat lonely district, with heavy clay roads and crooked lanes. In those days, too, a great part of it was thickly wooded. It must have been about 9 o'clock. He was riding along amid the overhanging trees on his strong horse, Jerry, and singing a Christmas carol, when Hubert felt that he heard a noise among the boughs. He brought to his mind that the spot he was crossing bore an evil name. Men had been waylaid there. That means people had gotten lost and had been possibly attacked by the highwaymen. "What do I care?" he said aloud. After a few minutes of reflection, Jerry's legs are too nimble to allow any highwayman to come near me. So he was very confident that Jerry would not allow any highwayman to come near him. "Ha ha, indeed," was said in a deep voice, and the next moment 3 men darted from the thicket. Hubert's bridle was seized and he was pulled from his horse. And although he struck out with all his might, he was overpowered. So here Hubert was attacked by 3 highwaymen who took control of his horse, and he threw him on the ground. His arms were tied behind him, his legs bound tightly together, and he was thrown into a ditch. The robbers, whose faces he could now dimly perceive to be blackened, at once departed, leading off the horse. So, before Hubert could realize and could recognize and see the faces of the highwaymen, they took his horse and went away. As soon as Hubert had recovered himself a little, he found that by great exertion he was able to extricate his legs from the cord, but was not able to free his hands. So after he could recover from the tiredness that he got into after the highwayman had thrown him in the ditch, he tried to unwind his legs from the cord, but was not able to free his hands. So all he could do was to rise to his feet and proceed on his way with his arms behind him, and trust to chance for getting them unfastened. It means that he hoped that he will be able to get the knots untied by some stroke of luck. He knew that it would be possible to reach home on foot that night, but he walked on. So he knew that it would be impossible. He would not be able to reach his home, but still Hubert started walking towards his home. Owing to the confusion which this attack caused in his brain, he lost his way. And so Hubert lost his way back home, as he was a bit scared and confused by the attack of highwaymen, and would have been inclined to lie down and rest till morning among the dead leaves, had he not known the danger of sleeping without wrappers in a frost so severe. So when he lost his way towards home, he thought of lying down and sleeping till the morning among the dead leaves. But he could not face this danger, as it was very cold. Remember, children, it was Christmas time. So he wandered further onwards, his heart aching for the loss of poor Jerry. Hubert was also very upset that he had lost his horse, Jerry. He was not a little glad when he saw through the trees a distant light. He made his way towards this, and soon found himself in front of a large mansion with gables and towers, the battlements and chimneys showing their shapes against the stars. So, while walking through the dense forest, Hubert saw a light, and he went there. When he went near it, he saw that it was a large mansion. So, in our first section of Caught by a Sneeze, we see that Hubert is attacked by highwaymen and thrown in a ditch. His horse, Jerry, was also taken away. Children, in my next video, we are going to read about section 2 and we'll find out what happens after Hubert sees the mansion, whether Hubert goes towards the mansion, whom does he meet there, and is he able to find his horse, and is he able to get back home? So all these questions will be answered when we will read the part 2 of the lesson. Thank you and happy reading.